Hello everybody, welcome to Summer Art Club today on this beautiful hot Tuesday outside. I'm Miss Karen. I am one of the children's librarians for Santa Clara County, and you can usually find me at the Woodland Branch Library, but today I am here with you and I'm so excited to do this painting. So I will be showing you all about it, but I also have two helpers. I have Tamara. And
hi.
So if you have questions, she will be one of the ladies helping to answer the questions. And I also have Jennifer.
Hello.
Hi, Jennifer, there you go. She's also going to help with answering questions and anything that you need as we go through this project. All right, so we are going to get going. Oh, I already see there's a question at the bottom, so we'll start working on that. And here we go. All right, so today we are going to be making a landscape very similar to this. So we're going to do some painting and we're going to layer on some other 3D pieces. And that's where that mixed media comes in. That means we're using more than one way to show or to create art. To do this, we're going to need a canvas. And I'm going to actually switch my camera here. Sorry. Oh, the buttons. Okay. Can everybody see that? By any chance? All right, so we're going to need a canvas, whether it's a stretched canvas or it's a piece of cardboard, a thick, heavy piece of paper. It really doesn't matter. Some acrylics or some tempera paints will work. Water, some brushes, a palette, which can be a piece of wax paper or anything else that you can use to mix your paints, and a pencil. So here we go. Before we start painting, there's a couple of parts of painting that we need to just talk about a little bit so we know, it gives us some basis to actually start painting. And when you look at a picture, there's something that's called the foreground, the background, and the middle ground. And the foreground is the part of the picture, when you look at it, that's closest to you. So usually at the bottom of the picture, it'll have brighter colors, and whatever objects or plants or animals or people are going to look much bigger. The background would be a little bit further away in that image, and those colors are going to be a little bit darker, they'll be a little bit smaller, and the color tone will be a little bit cooler. And then the middle ground is what comes in between all of that. So I have a picture here to show you of an example of what this looks like. And in this picture, you can see right along the mountain where it meets the sky, this would be the horizon line. So there's everything on the land, and then there's the sky. And that foreground is here at the bottom where there's bright yellow flowers and these pine trees that are really close. You know, you can see that those pictures are bigger. The yellow in the flowers is much brighter. And when you go further into the background, the trees look just a little bit darker and they're smaller. So we'll try, look at another picture just like this. And there's my pen. All right, so again, where the objects in the ground meet the sky, this is our horizon line, just like this. So we have the sky up here and the ground down here, and where they meet is the horizon. And then down here, where things are closer, we can see people. The objects are better. This would be our foreground, what's in front, and this part would be the background, because those objects are further away in this picture. So this particular painting is called landscape, what they call them. But I also mentioned earlier those bright colors and those dark colors. So when we look at colors, when we use our paints, we have the red, blue, and yellow here in this right picture. Those are our primary colors. And when we mix them, we get our secondary colors. So blue and yellow make green, green, or sorry, blue and red make magenta, and red and yellow make orange. So if you only have a couple of colors, you can do that mixing of colors to get a new color. Now, sometimes we just want brighter or darker tones of those colors. So if we take the color green, for example, in this left picture, if we add just a little bit of yellow to the green, we get a brighter green. And if we add blue to the green, we get a darker green. And the same here with the red. If you add yellow to the red, you get a brighter red. And if you add blue to the red, you get a darker, more purplish red. All right, so we're going to give this a try. Let me switch my screens. All right. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to move my paints here, but you can see I have different colors of paint. And some water. All right, so we're going to need our white paint, and we're going to start with green and blue as our colors. And what we need to do on our canvas, whatever direction you want to go, it doesn't matter if you do it in landscape or if you turn it the long ways and it's in portrait. I'm going to do it in landscape. You're going to make a line right down through the middle, and it doesn't have to be a straight line. It can be a little bit curved, but that's going to be our horizon line, and we're going to use that to help us know where we're going to switch our colors. So on our palette, I'm going to need some blue, and we'll start with just a little bit. We can always add more paint if we need more paint, and some green. And we're going to need some white, probably a bunch of white at that. All right. Now I also have 3 different sizes of paintbrushes, and because I'm going to be painting the biggest parts of this, half of it's going to be green because that's the plants on the bottom, and the top half is going to be blue. I'm going to start with my biggest brush. There it is, because we'll be able to cover the most area with it. So I'll get my bristles wet. And for the green, we'll just pick up some green paint. And you can do this too. And we're just going to cover this bottom half with green paint. And don't worry if it's a completely clean line or it's a little bit fuzzy from the edges of the brush. And that's all right, because nothing in nature is a perfectly clean line. And you know what? I didn't even put enough green paint on here, so I'm going to add some more green paint. Let's see where that gets me. All right. So let's just add paint until we have a big green area, just like this. So tempera paints and acrylic paints are really great for this kind of painting because they spread and you can make them a little thicker or a little thinner, which give you some lighter and darker colors. You can see I also had put down brown paper underneath to protect my counters so we don't have a big mess. We don't want that. So just keep adding the paint. Just like this. All right, I'm gonna move my palette over a little bit and keep going. And right now, I don't really care if the green color is even or if we see the brush strokes. That's just part of having a little bit of movement and texture in the paint. And that makes the picture a little more interesting to look at and a little bit more real. Need some more green paint. Always better to start out with less and add more so we don't waste. And we just keep going. Now, some of you might have beaten me because you've got a smaller canvas, and that's all right. Some of you might be a little slower or a little faster. And that is just fine too. And the great part about doing this is this is being recorded. So if I go a little bit fast, you can always come back to this later on Santa Clara County's website, or Facebook page rather, because we're going to put the recording there. And just a little bit of white shining through there, so I'm just going to add a little bit more paint. You know, and that looks pretty good with the green. All right. A few more white spots down here to fill in. All right. So if you're still doing the green, you can keep going. I'm going to switch colors and start adding blue in for the sky. So I have some water here, and I'm just going to use that to rinse out the green paint from my brush and dry it on some paper towels. And then we'll switch colors. All right, now if we go back to my palette, you can see this is a much darker blue than what the sky would be. So we're going to mix some white in there to make a lighter blue. And I'm going to start by taking just a little bit of my blue and adding it into the white paint. I can always add more blue to get a darker blue, or if the blue comes out too light, but it's much harder to make it a lighter. So you can see on my brush, there's just a little bit of blue. And we're going to start putting that in. And you can see what that looks like. And you know what? I need some more blue, so I'll grab some more blue and I'll start mixing that in until I get a color that I think looks good for the sky. A little bit more. Let's see. Might be easier to do this so you can see me mixing these colors. Okay. Let's see. I think that's still a little bit light. Let me just rub some of that paint off, get some more blue, and keep going. That looks like a pretty good sky color to me. So we're going to use that paint. We'll come back to our canvas. I think I need another hand. And we're going to start just putting the blue paint on the top. Move my mouse. Don't want to get paint on there. And when you get to the edge, there might be a little bit of mixing, and that's okay on that horizon line. We're just going to get kind of close. All right, and a little bit more. You can see I crossed over a bit, and that's okay. Those are those happy little mistakes. And the great thing about tempers and acrylics, once they've dried enough, you can actually paint over a color and it will be opaque and you won't see the underneath color. If you paint while the colors are still wet, then you start getting a little bit of blending. And I will show you that in just a minute, because we're going to add a little bit of yellow for the sun. Oh, look at that. Now, if by any chance you didn't mix up enough blue paint for the sky, you can always go back and mix some more blue and white together. And it might be that it's not quite the same shade of blue, and that's okay, because when you look at the sky, you know, depending if there's clouds in the sky, or there's smog or whatever else is going on, you can see a few different color shades of blue when you look up. And so that's perfectly okay to have a slightly different shade of blue, and you can blend it and you can mix it. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna rinse my brush out, dry it off. Get all that extra paint out. And when you're painting, and if your water gets to be really cloudy, you can always run over to the sink real quick and dump it out and get some fresh water so you get a clean brush to work with. Dry it off a little bit. All right, so now I want to add the sun, and I'm going to use some yellow paint, and I only need just a tiny bit. So if I go back to my palette, move this again, I'm going to put just a little bit of yellow, and we probably won't even use that much. It's always better to have less. And we're going to end up blending some of this yellow and the blue because there's not really a good defining line between the sun and the sky sometimes. So we only need a little. I mean, a little. You can see just how little I put on this brush. We'll come back. I'm just going to put my sun up here, and I'm going to start painting it on. And as I go over the blue, and I'm just going back and forth, gives me a bright spot. And I'll just drag it out a little bit. So just the tiniest bit of yellow mixes over here so you can almost not even see it. There's just so little. And you know what? If you had a little bit of yellow paint and your blue sky got a little out of control and turned green because you had blue and yellow mixing, you can always come back to your blue that you made before and paint over the parts that turned a little bit green. You know what? I think I did a pretty good job this time. It looks good to me. Like you can just barely see it here, but there's a little bit more yellow up here, and that would be our sun. All right, so that is just our base layer. We've got our sky, we have our horizon line right here where the sky meets the earth, and we have the green part that's going to be where all our plants are. Now, let me rinse my brush. We're going to worry about this foreground and this background a little bit. So if you remember, earlier I said the foreground had brighter colors and the background had darker colors. And we're going to next add the stems of the different plants. So we're going to rinse this brush out. But to do that, the stems in the foreground need to be brighter than the stems in the background. So we'll go back to our palette. Here it is, and I'll show you how to mix that. We need some second spot of green because we're going to use that green too. And I've got that blue here, and I've got this yellow. So I'm going to mix some of this blue into the green paint and this yellow paint into this green paint. So I'll get a darker green here and a brighter green here. And now I'm actually going to use a much narrower brush because, flower stems are going to be much more delicate looking. So I'll take this blue and I'll mix it into the green. It's still going to be green, but a darker green. You know what? I think I still might need a little bit more blue. I don't think that was enough for that much green. And that's all right. So we'll just get a little bit more. Some of this blue and add it in. And I don't know if you can tell, let's see if I move this a little closer, that this green is looking much darker than this one. It's still green, and you can't see the blue in it, but it's much darker. All right, let me rinse this off, and we're going to do the same with the yellow. Wipe the excess water off my bristles. All right, and then I'm going to take the yellow and we'll add it into the green. And let's see what happens. I want it to brighter green. I think a little more yellow might be needed. Not much, just a little. There we go. Just little dots. Always easier to add more than take away. There we go. All right, so now we have a darker green and we have a brighter green. So this darker green that we made is going to be used for stems in the background, and the lighter green will be stems in the foreground. All right, so I'm going to move this, and we're going to actually start with the background stems. So looking at our canvas, let me move this up. There we go. So you can see what I'm doing. You know, this closer part on the bottom is our foreground, and this part here is our background. So we're only going to make some stems on the top half of this green part, and then the foreground will be that lighter green stems on the bottom half. But it's not a harsh line between the two, that they're going to overlap just a little bit. All right, so getting some of that darker green, I can just start making lines for stems. And they can go up into the sky a little bit. And you're just going to move them all over. The stems don't always go straight. They could be crooked. Some are a little thicker, some are a little thinner. So just put the ones on there that you want. Maybe your field only has a few flowers, or maybe it has lots of flowers. That is up to you. And that is the thing about art. It can just be a little bit, you know, might just be little dots. Maybe these are just some of the plants that grow that don't actually get a bright flower. It's just green. You know, a longer stem over here, and one up here, just like that. And we'll keep adding. And I even came all the way down here a little bit, because that's where that foreground and the background kind of blend and merge together. I want another one there, because that makes me happy. And everybody's is different. As much or as little as you want. All right, you know what, I think that looks pretty good for me. Let me rinse my brush again. All right, and I'm going to use that brighter green color. And now I'm going to come down here in this foreground area and add some stems that are brighter green. Just like that. And again, you get to decide how many or how little there are. Maybe it's just a few flowers. Maybe it's a lot of flowers. Just to add them in there a little bit. And again, in this kind of spot where they meet, it can overlap a little bit. And that's all right, because that's the way nature is. We don't always. It just does its thing. All right, and when you're happy with the number of stems, whatever that might look like for you, that looks pretty good for me. I'm going to rinse my brush off again. All right, and now I'm actually going to hand paint some of these flowers that are in the background. And if you're still working on your stems, that is perfectly all right. And for the flowers in the background, you know what I think? Some red flowers, some purple flowers. We could have yellow flowers. We could have blue flowers. What do we have? I've got orange. You know, there's lots of different colors. So we can use just little bits of paint, as many colors as you want to try. Let's see, some red. I'm going to have some purple. I'm going to have a yellow flower. You know, some flowers are even white, so let's put some more white on here. All right, so I've got all these colors to work with. And you know, maybe you want a pink flower, so you can mix a little bit of white and red, or a light purple flower, so you could add a little white to the purple. You know, that's up to you and however it works, or however it makes it happy for you. You get to decide those colors. And you could do nice big flowers, little flowers, there's different ways. You know, I'm going to start with my white paint. And for my first flower, I'm going to start up here. I'm just going to make this a bunch of little dots, almost like a dandelion. That's a really big dandelion. That's okay. It's my dandelion. We'll let it be. And when you switch colors, make sure you rinse your brush off so you don't accidentally make colors you don't want. You know what? I think maybe I want some brown or some brown. And I'll do two colors for a flower. Like a sunflower. So start with some brown, which would be the middle, just like that. And rinse off. Rinse and dry between the colors. And I'll get a little bit of yellow. And I can have just some leaves coming out like it's a sunflower. You might have to go over this if your blue paint isn't dry enough. But we'll just, yeah, see, my green wasn't very dry. So I'll do my best to add a little bit more yellow and not mix it, but you know, whatever it is, it is. I'm gonna keep going. Add a little more if we need it. And you might have to come back a little bit later and add some more color on top of that. But that's kind of like a sunflower. You know, there's some flowers like hyacinths, which are purple, and they kind of, they're kind of a triangle shape almost, and they just do things like this. And they come off. And you know what? Purple's my favorite. I'm going to make two of these. So maybe my hyacinth needs be a little lighter. Add some white paint to my purple. See? And there it is, a little bit lighter until you're happy with it. All right, let's see. I think maybe we'll go back to some brown. You know, there's some flowers where you've got the centers, and when you look at them from the side, it's almost just like a line like this. I'll come back with some red. We can have Ooh, leaves coming out, or petals. Those are petals, those aren't leaves. Oh, I'm being silly. Just like that. And we're only looking at it from the front, not the back, so we'll just have petals coming down from the side. Let's rinse that off. You know, maybe if you've got a thin enough brush, even if you wanted to make tulip shape, you could do that. This brush isn't very thin, so I don't get, kind of looks more like a heart. I don't get very many details. That's all right. We'll just give it a pokey up bit there. And you know what? It can be whatever flower it wants to be. So you just keep going and adding in, and maybe I'll go back and do some more dandelion puff flowers. And I'll come down in here. Oh, that worked a little better. Just the smallest bits of paint. Like that. Get a little purple and white here. And we could come do another one of those flowers like this. Or maybe you have another way to do it that I don't. That would be all right too. You know what, I kind of want a pink flower, so I'm going to mix some red and some white together to get pink. Get a little bit of red on my palette with the white. It kind of looks like a nice pink color. And then rinse that off. And I'm going to kind of do like I did there, where start with the brown spot. No, I even got paint on me. And you know what, that's okay. I'll be careful not to touch the furniture or my clothes. That can be hard to wash off, but I can come back and get some of this pink paint that I made and just add a few more flowers like that. All right. So those, you can continue to add more flowers in the background if you want. I'm gonna move to the foreground. So that's where we get to that mixed media part. We're gonna use other things that are in your house. I'm gonna move my palette out of the way. And I'm going to start with a cloud. I want a cloud. So I've got a cotton ball here. And I'm going to rip off just a little piece like this. And you can spread it out, shape it out, and we'll lay it about where you want it to be in the sky. Just like this. Clouds are all kinds of shapes, so maybe there's 2 clouds in your sky. And just rip off tiny little pieces of that cotton ball. Just so. This cloud is, you know what, he's living his best life, so it's kind of like a happy face. All right, I'm gonna let this dry, and I'm actually gonna show you one that I started earlier, so I can show you how to put some other things on to glue where the paint isn't wet. So remove this. All right, so here's another one I did where I started adding, let's move in, you can see I have my cloud like we just did, but I started using some other things I found in my house to make other kinds of flowers. So I've got seeds, I've got grains, I've got tissue paper, felt, I got Q-tips, there's a bead. You could use sequins or pasta, whatever works for you. So for example, in my pantry, I found peppercorns. because I could glue down on. I found fennel seeds. There we go. And they're just long, skinny things. Got rice, beads. I have sesame seeds, just like that. Mustard seeds, which are little tiny spheres. I have popcorn kernels. What else did I find in my house? I've got coriander. That works. There are some lentils in here and some long grain rices, so there's a little bit of different color. I've got Q-tips. I've got macaroni. I forgot to bring home some sequins. You could use sequins, or cardamom seeds would work really well. It's really up to you and what you can find. So let's say we want to use some of these noodles. We can pick a spot that might look like a good noodle spot. And we'll just lay out. We'll see, they're just rolling all over, aren't they? Maybe it starts like that. I don't know, we'll just make a shape and see what works. We'll take a bead. Maybe one of my pink beads will be good. That'll be a bright color. And once you get a shape that you like, whatever that is, you can use your white glue to glue it down. All right, so just move that to the side. Put some glue there. And add my pieces. All right. Yeah, they might get away from you a little bit. That's all right. We'll just add it in. So like this flower here, I used a wood bead in the middle and I added popcorn around the outside. So I can get another bead. Come here, bead. Let's see, where should I put that? Maybe I'll put that up here. Some glue down. This is something you would do after the paint is dried. So I'm just going to quickly show you some of these things, and then you get to go be creative a little later after your paint is dried. I need some popcorn seeds. Let me pull some out. Oh my God. A little ring of glue. And the great thing about this white glue is that it dries clear. So even if you got a little excited with your glue and put a little much down, once it dries, you're not going to be able to see it. And just add it on. However you want it to be. And again, you can decide if you want a lot of flowers, a little flowers, maybe all the same kind of flower. Ooh, oh, that fell on the floor. Get that later. Just add them on. And some of these littler, more delicate flowers, might be good for some older kids, so it's easier to move around. For younger kids, you might want some tissue paper. And you can get tissue paper here. Just make little squares of tissue paper. And if you put it on the end of a pencil just so, kind of folding it over and squashing it, you can take a little dab of glue Like that, doesn't take much. And we'll just stick it on a flower stem up here. And that's just fine. Now, if you wanted to do a flower like this, this is one that might need a grown-up to help you with, because I took some Q-tips, and it's kind of hard, but if you cut the end of the Q-tip off, there it goes. Oh, it went flying. It looks like this, and then you can glue them in a circle and add it on and build it up. And then I put a few sesame seeds there in the middle. This little flower, this is grains of rice and mustard seeds. This is peppercorns. This is the lentils and rice. I think that was all the kinds that I used. Now, for this felt one is definitely one for an adult to help you with, because you would start with a piece of felt like this. I've got a pink one with me. And you could use like a can to trace a circle and cut it out, and you would wind up with a circle like this. And what you would do, you're kind of just giving yourself a guide. You're making a spiral. You get to the middle. And you would cut along that spiral shape like this. There it goes. Okay. And this is where having an adult to help you is important, because it's white glue doesn't work so well, and you would need a glue gun, and you want your parent to help you do this. But you would start rolling it up just a little bit. Look. And after you get along a little bit, I keep dropping it. Oh my goodness. Try again here. I'm rolling it so it's a flat edge. And every so often, you would just have a little bit of hot glue, and you would keep rolling. And just a little bit of glue as you go along. That's what your adult is for. Until you get rolled the whole way like this. And that's almost like a rose. When you get to the end, you get your middle part, and you can kind of just glue it to the bottom and then glue that piece right onto your stems. So there's so many different ways to make flowers, and that's up to you. You know, use what you find in your house. If you've got pasta, you've got beads or sequins or tissue paper or spices, whatever you can find to make shapes and flowers that suit you. All right, we're getting close to the end here. I'm going to switch my screen over. All right, almost there. I'm going to go back to this PowerPoint. Oh, excuse me. All right, so I leave you to finish creating and putting it on there. Next week, we're going to be making sun catchers. So here are some pictures of what it's going to look like. There's the rainbow one. There's just this geometric freestyle pattern on the bottom. Again, whatever you want it to be. But for that, you're going to need some paper plates, contact paper, tissue paper, scissors, markers, crayons, masking tape. If you want to get fancy, you could get some yarn or ribbon to hang it. or other decorations to add to it as you would like. That's up to you. So next Tuesday at 3 is going to be that project. And then in this case, once you complete your project, we would love to see what you've created. So we have made an art gallery, and you can submit pictures of your art. We just ask that it's your art and not your face. And you can find that at this link that's in the middle, this sccld.org/summer. And once you get to the summer reading page on our website, if you scroll to the bottom, you will find a link to the art club gallery. And if you haven't signed up for summer reading yet, you can also do that. We would love for you to help us read as many books as we can this summer. Did I forget anything? I don't think so. So a little bit later today, once we're done, this recording of this project will be up on our Facebook page. So if you want to hear something that I said again or catch up because I was too fast for you, you can always go back and watch it until you finish. And I encourage you to be creative. Flowers and plants and nature are lots of colors, lots of shapes, lots of textures. So be creative and enjoy the process. All right, everyone. It was great seeing you today, and we hope to see you next week.